Is this a good setting? Who can never be sure?
Who can never be sure?
Extraordinary.
Hi guys, it's Al. I make videos whenever I feel like it, and today I feel like making a uni Q&A. I went on Instagram and asked you guys, I always feel like I sound really pretentious whenever I say that because you guys are probably just my friends, but I asked you if you had any questions about my life here in the Netherlands, being a university student, being a post-IB student, a bunch of different things that has to do with academics, because I don't feel like I do record a lot of my life during academics, but I don't sit down and talk, unfortunately. So I thought I would finally talk. So I'm gonna end this introduction and we're just gonna hop right into it. By the way, if you guys want to know about specific things, I have time slots, I don't know, like time points in the down bar below, so you can go with each topic that you want to watch specifically, so you don't have to sit here and watch everything, although I would appreciate it if you did, but I don't expect you to, and you don't have to. Alright, let's hop in. Hey guys, future still interrupting here. I'm in the middle of exam weeks, but I had to cut in because unfortunately, due to my endless babbling during this video, I had to split this into two, so I hope you don't mind. But I will put all the information down below so you'll know which segments to find, and I'll also put in for the next video, so if you want to just skip this one and go ahead to the next one, you can also do that. Sorry for the inconvenience, and thank you for watching. Alright, enjoy. Back to the video. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about the Netherlands and Nijmegen specifically. If you guys didn't already know, I live in the city of Nijmegen and I go to the Radboud University, and Nijmegen is located in sort of the east of the Netherlands. I am going to hop into the questions right now about where I live geographically and what the culture is like. First question that I got is, what's special about living in the Netherlands or Nijmegen? So for me, one of the best parts about living in the Netherlands is that I have a lot of family here. A lot of my mom's side of the family are here. I have a lot of aunts and cousins and relatives and family friends galore, so I have a lot of people that I can get in touch with and a lot of people that were present in my childhood that I can now reconnect with. Another really cool thing is the language. So Dutch is originally my mother tongue, but that kind of faded away because I lived in Indonesia and then I went to international school, so I learned English, and then now English is kind of just my dominant language. But the fact that I'm here means that I can sort of get in touch with it again. Another thing that's special about the Netherlands, I would say, is that it's a very, very English-friendly speaking country. Even if you're not Dutch, even if you don't understand Dutch, getting around isn't as hard as a lot of other European countries. I think they're just more accommodating to English-speaking people. So that's a really, really good pointer if, you know, you're not from a European country or you're not familiar with the Dutch culture at all. The second part of the question is, why is Nijmegen so special? Why I chose Nijmegen rather than all the other universities that offer my course, which is arts and culture, if you didn't know, is the fact that it was close to all of my family. Like, it's really easy to get to my family, so I chose to be here. The thing that I really like about Nijmegen is that it's the perfect blend of sort of the urban setting and nature as well. So I think Radboud pretty much prides itself on being a university that's kind of located in the middle of a forest. Another thing that I really like about it is the size. I think geographically, the size is perfect. It's not too big, not too small. You know, the city center has everything. It's still a very student city, so it's quite big, and there are a lot of student housings and just housing in general that you can get on Facebook groups. But at the same time, it's not too big where you're overwhelmed and there's a lot of crime, and nothing like that ever happens here. The next question that I got is, what is the best thing about studying abroad? Do I like it, and would I recommend it? So the best thing about studying abroad is traveling. I tend to get very bored of my environment, and as a result I tend to feel very suffocated. So I like to move a lot. I can't really stay still in one place, and the best thing about the Netherlands is that there are so many different places to visit. By train you can go to another country, you can just go to another city, and a lot of the times they kind of look a little bit different, the vibe's a little bit different, they have different people, so it's very accessible if you love traveling as well. A lot of people go to Belgium, so I'm going to Italy next week. Some people go to Spain. Yeah, you can pretty much go anywhere and it's just closer. So usually the airline tickets are cheaper. The worst thing about studying abroad, I would say, is the culture shock. Even if you don't think you're gonna get a culture shock, you probably are. I know I did, just a little bit, which I didn't think I would because my mom was raised here, so I thought, oh yeah, no, I know Dutch people, you know. I've met my Dutch relatives. I go here for the summer break sometimes, but I still got it, and it's still just something that you have to get used to. I think even if you don't study abroad and you just move to a new school, you're still gonna have to get used to that school's sort of subculture. Culture can also really sort of restrain how you communicate because culture blocks, you know, like sometimes there are sayings that you don't really have in English, so people might not understand, or sometimes you may be a little bit more fluent or less fluent in English than other people, so humor sometimes gets a little bit caught up in language. But other than that, I think that, you know, a lot of schools always recommend traveling abroad and studying abroad, and it makes sense because it does broaden your horizon. It allows you to network with a bunch of different people, and it's just a growing experience. If you can, I would highly recommend studying abroad. Another question that I got is, how do you adjust to the people in the Netherlands? Because there's clearly a different culture between us. And this was asked by an Indonesian person. So, sebagai orang Indonesia, adat kita emang beda banget. Dan cara kita bersosialisasi juga beda banget. By the way, sorry, my Indonesian is totally rusty. I haven't been speaking in Indo for a while. But, ya, emang beda sih. Tapi bukan berarti nggak bisa. Dan sebenarnya nggak sebeda apa yang kita pikir, karena penjajahan adat Indonesia juga ini dipakai, dan banyak misalnya makanan lah atau kata-kata yang dipakai sehari-hari di Belanda. So going back to English, I think one of the best ways to adjust is to communicate. Sometimes there is that sort of Orientalist view, and you know, you're seen as the exotic culture because you're not Dutch and you speak a different language and you eat different foods and whatnot, and that can be really frustrating. A lot of the times you get looked at sort of as like the token, like brown or colored person. In Indonesia, people always looked at me like, oh, you're definitely more westernized, kayak oh, lo lebih bule pokoknya kan. And then I come here and they're like, you're not Dutch at all. And then I say I'm Indonesian and they're like, well, you don't sound Indonesian, which is, first of all, it's quite offensive, because I think that there's always that thing that like, oh, when you speak perfect English, that means you're more intelligent, which is not true. You can be intelligent in your own language. And then there's also like that whole ideal that they expect Indonesians to have a certain amount of education, and that sometimes mean that they don't realize that actually there are a lot of schools that implement a lot of good English, and also just like the internet is a thing, TV is a thing, you know, like people learn English regardless of going to a Sekolah Nasional or Sekolah Internasional. Like, it doesn't really matter anymore these days. You have a lot of different people who don't get great English education in school but speak perfect English just because they grew up with consuming English media. So my suggestion is to communicate, because that's really important. And although, you know, some people may sort of look at you a little bit differently at first, it's never in a bad way. It's just because they're not used to it. So, you know, I think if you speak up and you explain why some things may not feel good when they ask you a certain question, you could take it the wrong way, it could feel a little bit insensitive or offensive, then explain to them, because a lot of people want to listen, and a lot of Dutch people want to, you know, be, I guess, more internationalized and understand other cultures better. Here's another kind of long question, so we're gonna break this down. First of all, what are Dutch people like? So I did list some attributes. Individualistic, tourist-friendly, impatient a lot of the times in public, at least with the older people. Chill and very, very laid-back as students. Some may say a little bit too laid-back, but I think that really depends on what kind of person they are. You can't really generalize. The second part of the question is, what accommodation would you recommend, off-campus or on-campus, and what do you and your friends consider to be better? So applying for accommodation is quite a difficult process. I am going through it again because I need to apply for a second year contract. I joined SSHN, and SSHN is a student housing network. So you have to make an account on the website, and then you get a ticket, I think, if I remember correctly. And when you get a ticket, you get a window of opportunity where you can apply online for a room. What do I recommend off campus or on campus? Well, since I have a lot of family here, I do tend to travel outside of the city, and so I like being closer to the city center and the train station. But that of course depends on what you plan on doing with your time here. But if you think that you're definitely going to be spending a lot of the time on campus, then obviously near campus. It really depends on what you want to do. The next part of the question is there a good support system for students studying abroad? So I take arts and culture, and we have our own student advisor or study advisor. She really helps us out. She has office hours. You can always sign up and talk about any concerns you may have. So that really helps. I also have a mentoring program in the first year. You will be put into groups, and then they will have, I think, a professor and one second or third year student that's assigned to your group. They will help you out, and you will have a lot of activities, and you'll sort of have meetings where you can talk about where you're at, if you have any worries, what you don't maybe feel so good about. We also have plenary meetings throughout the year, and I think we have 4 or 3, and that is where we talk about like the bigger topics such as internships or studying abroad. If you require more in-depth help, and usually if you go to the student advisor, your student advisor will recommend you to a student psychologist, because we have psychologists on campus, and you can sign up for sessions with them online. You will definitely have people out there who can help you, as long as you are willing to reach out and ask for help. Another question I got is it hard living there if you don't speak Dutch? Also, kan aku di Indonesia nggak pernah sekolah internasional, ribet nggak sih nanti di sananya? Like I said before, most people speak English. Most of the time, people will understand what you're talking about. Like for me, I learned arts and culture, and I have to write a lot of essays and presentations, and all of those are in English. So if you can do academic English, you'll be fine. Also, the university requires like a certain amount of grade from an English speaking test, even if you don't have an English speaking diploma. So I think it's like TOEFL or IELTS. As long as you pass those exams, then you can come in. Will it be hard? Maybe because you're not used to it and people have accents. I know sometimes I even have trouble understanding, but if you feel confident and you pass, like, it sounds like you're definitely gonna be okay. The next question I got is, was studying in the Netherlands your first choice? It wasn't necessarily something I actually considered until my parents brought it up. I was like, oh, yeah, no, that sounds like something I could do. And I remember I started looking at universities in 8th grade. I think I went to Yale and US in Singapore with my mom, and that was sort of the first real option that we explored. And then we found the Netherlands, and then we realized that the Netherlands was just a much better option for me, like financially, socially, culturally. It just made more sense. I'm glad to say that I'm happy to be here. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into a different category, and I'm gonna start talking about work. So the first question is, how much is your workload and how do you balance? So workload can be a little bit deceiving, because when you get your timetable, you realize that, oh, maybe I'm gonna have a lot of free time, because you have a lot less time on campus. In university, you have classes that are a bit later and they end earlier, but that doesn't mean your studying ends there. For example, I have a lot of classes that start at 10:45, a lot of them end at 1:30, 3:30, sometimes at 5:30, but I have a lot of reading. Sometimes it can go up to 100 pages per week, and then I have assignments, and then I have essays, so it doesn't end there. But how do I balance it? First of all, I make sure that I'm not cooped up in my room all the time. For me, I sort of change my environment quite a bit. Hopefully you'll make friends here, and you can go out and you can have brunch or lunch or dinner. You can sort of just like walk around the city, like explore by yourself. I go to the gym, and it's really cheap for students, so I would highly recommend applying for a gym membership on the on-campus gym. You can also travel, by the way. There are groups on Facebook, so there are about groups, and I'll put them in the down bar below, so you guys can check that out as well. It's cheaper to buy group tickets So a lot of people then travel in groups even though they don't know each other, and they'll put it on Facebook if they need more people or if there are people who are interested in joining. So you can always join them, and then you can travel to Amsterdam for a lot cheaper than if you had to travel alone, for example. Next question, lectures and lecturers, what are they like, and college as a whole? Was it a shock to the system in terms of workload and responsibility as opposed to that set upon you in high school? Lectures are, because I study in a more sort of like, it's the indie option at my university. Not a lot of people study arts and culture. My lecture halls are very small compared to what you see in movies. There are really big lecture halls on campus as well, and that's where psychology students go. But for me, it's quite focused. I know everyone, and all the lecturers or professors, they know me. They usually know you by your name. It's very relaxed here compared to what I'm used to in Indonesia. It's very much like students sort of just sit there and take what the teachers say, which I think isn't so great. Whereas here, the culture is very different. You can always just like interrupt whenever you want. If you don't feel like, you know, you understand, you can always ask. And yeah, it's very Western, I guess, in that sense. Lectures run for, I think, an hour and a half, and then we'd have a movie screening sometimes. And college as a whole, was it a shock to the system in terms of workload and responsibility? It's very different from high school. I think people say this a lot. I said it's much more self-studying, and you get so much more responsibilities because you're responsible for yourself, and they're really not gonna hold your hand. They're not gonna ask you if you need any help. You're gonna have to ask for help yourself. You need to take initiative, and you need to maybe go into office hours of your professors, and you need to talk to them after class or after lectures, and then ask them if you could get some more feedback on a certain paper if you need it. So in that sense, there's definitely a lot more pressure on yourself. If you're coming from the IB, I would definitely say you're going to be prepared as long as you did your school did the IB properly. You should be okay, because the workload is quite similar in terms of how much you need to read and things like that. The next question that I got is time management and how busy is uni life there? Do you still have time to hang out in the weekends? First of all, time management, I'm thinking of sort of making a separate time management video. I know that a lot of people ask me about the IB, and I will talk about that in the next category. But comment down below if you want a separate time management video, because I have no clue. But how busy is uni life there? Apparently for the arts and culture, the first year is the busiest. So like the first semester I had, it was crazy. I had 2, almost sometimes even 4 essays per week. So much reading. But now I have a lot of time, and I only have 1 essay per period. I have Wednesdays and Thursdays off. Like, if you can get through the IB, it's nothing that's not manageable. That's what I think. Do you still have time to hang out in the weekends? I do, because my grandma is in the Netherlands right now, and time with my other relatives. Sometimes I would go out with my friends, and also because I have my days off on Wednesdays and Thursdays right now, that means I get to do my assignments for Friday because I have 2 seminars on Friday. I would definitely say that you have time on the weekends. I think everybody else does.